Hey, in this video, I'm gonna try to answer a really simple question. Can Manjaro fulfill your needs for gaming and content creation? Let's get into it. As always, we're gonna start with a little bit of context. A little time ago, I made a top tier list for the distribution you could use for gaming and content creation. And I put a really bad grade for Manjaro. And the reason why is that Manjaro was one of the first distro I tried after moving from Windows for my desktop usage. And my experience didn't last more than, I think like 1 week or 2 weeks, like 2 weeks stop. The distro just break, everything was all over the place. And since then, I didn't want to touch this distro like for nothing. I wouldn't put my finger on it. I want to be really like transparent with you. This is not the type of distro I enjoyed at the time. However, after making this list, I heard a lot of you guys were mentioning that Manjaro is not that bad. And a lot of you mentioned that I should give it another try. So this is what I've done. I installed it on hard on my computer while I was streaming, and I share my experience with you guys just to see like what Manjaro really offer. In case you never heard about Manjaro, which kind of like seems not possible at this time, but let's say you never heard about them, well, let's go on their website and see how they define themselves and their vision. So Manjaro is empowering devices and users. Manjaro is a versatile open source Linux operating system designed with a strong focus on safeguarding user privacy and offering extensive control over hardware. This user-friendly OS, this is important, is an excellent choice for those who seek a fresh computing experience, as it can be seamlessly installed on a diverse array of devices. Blah, 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 blah. So the way they really define themselves is that they are user-friendly, which means in my definition of user-friendly is like you wouldn't have to touch the terminal at all. And they are also presenting themselves as a rolling release, right? Like it's really about having the latest hardware being compatible with this distro. So before we move on with this presentation of Manjaro, I want to clear out the air here. Manjaro is not Arch. Let's be clear on that. I don't know what you think, but I'm going to tell you straight, Manjaro is not Arch. So yes, they use Pac-Man. Yes, it looks like Arch, but it is not Arch. And for a simple reason, they have their own repository. So let me explain. If you install another like distribution like EndeavourOS, you're going to have access to the Arch repository. And on top of that, they're going to add their own like EndeavourOS repo, for example. But most of their packages are going to come from Arch, like the real Arch, like the base one, the mother distro. Manjaro, nothing on your computer is going to come directly from Arch. It's going to come from the Manjaro repo. I want to make that clear. This distro is not Arch. Now, why am I telling you that? Because in the structure of the distro, it's really important to understand what the distro is. It's not an Arch with a little theming and some optimization. This is not what it is at all. What they do is they literally fork Arch and they decide what packages to push or not to push to deliver the experience they are mentioning here in their definition. Okay, so this is really important before we move on, because when you are using Manjaro, you are not using Arch. I just want to make that super clear. When it comes to desktop environment and overall like experience, Manjaro comes with a lot of options. I believe they have the three like main one, which are GNOME, KDE Plasma, and XFCE4. Those desktops are supported by the Manjaro team. And on top of this, they have the community desktop environment and Windows Manager supported by the community. So you can see them. They have Budgie, Sway, Mate, Cinnamon, Manjaro Docker, and i3 Window Manager. So Manjaro comes with a lot of options with desktop environment. For my test, I went through Plasma because this is the one I'm the more used to right now, and the one I could like compare with the other distro. That's the one I use for all my tests. When it comes to software in general, the main differentiator for this distribution is the application called PAMac. And this application is developed by the Manjaro team. And it's a great GUI that gives you the opportunity to install any type of software from any type of source on your distribution. And I have to say, it's a really nice piece of software. However, and I will talk about it later in the review here, it also comes with a little trick that might make you hate Manjaro or literally like break your distro. So but we'll talk about it after. But overall, the software itself is really good, but you're gonna have to be really careful about the source you use, and especially if you are using Manjaro. One point which I believe is important is the overall software experience. We are talking about a distro which is rolling edge. But this distro, the way like the Manjaro team is actually working on is not as rolling edge as an Arch. As I mentioned earlier, they don't use the Arch repo. So they will kind of like take a step back and decide what upgrade should be done or not to align with their vision. So to give you an example, in this test, I use stable, okay? And in stable, you don't have KDE 6 Plasma still. Even if it was released, I think like 1 month ago, well, they didn't push it yet. If you want to test it, I do believe you have to go on testing or unstable. I didn't try during my test because I wanted to use, the stable vision of the team and in this review. But this is to give you an idea of the way it works, right? They take the packages released from Arch, and then they decide the ones they really want to push or not in their stable branch. From your side, if you want to go with testing or unstable, you can still like do that. But the main idea here is to provide a stable experience. So now you have kind of like an idea of the whole vision of the Manjaro team when it comes to push the update and the packages to your distro there on your computer. All right, so now you understand the basic about Manjaro. Let's talk about the positive. And the first point I want to develop here is the installation process. The installation process is really smooth. You have the choice of a lot of desktop environment, as I mentioned before. Everything works out of the box. Like that was really smooth. I didn't encounter any issue related to the bootloader of another distro or another like SSD in my PC. Everything went smooth. So this was nice. The second point I want to mention is the rising of Manjaro. So let me be clear. This rising, in my opinion, is one of the best in the community. I really like the way like the desktop look. I really like all the attention to detail the team put in the rising of Manjaro. I have to say, for the rising, out of the box, this is just looking awesome. I like everything about, their way they market their overall like desktop experience. This is just awesome. So I have to say that because, it's totally subjective. But I think like if you're gonna try it, you're gonna really like it. It's just my opinion. I don't know how they could make the green look so good on my desktop. To be fair, it's just awesome. The third point I want to mention is the fact that if you are a beginner and you don't want to touch the terminal, you can do everything without ever having to touch the terminal. Almost. We'll talk about that in the negative, but on paper, the experience on Manjaro is just great if you don't want to touch the terminal. Like everything can go through a GUI. Again, I'm going to mention PAMAC, which I believe is great to install your software. But they all have also like a little software to change your kernel. For example, it's a little bit hard to find. However, but it's still there. So one of the viewers helped me to find the little like applet that give you the opportunity to change and install your kernel. And this was actually really, really nice. Now, because we are talking about kernel, that's the fourth point or the third point, I don't know. But you got it. The next point is that you can choose whatever kernel you want. They have a lot of kernels. They don't have the latest, but they have like pretty recent kernel and it's super easy to switch. You have a lot of choices and that it's also a plus for Manjaro. Last point is about gaming. And I put that in the positive because I do believe the experience in gaming, even if it was not like the crazy, like optimized type of distro, I do believe is still really decent and really good. I had really good like benchmark. I tried, to do my little testing for the input lag, for the latency, and I do believe the kernel they deliver is really nice. Like I didn't have any issue with it, and I think I have to mention it to you guys. This is good in terms of performance for gaming. Could you get better? Yes. Is it a requirement? No. Okay, I do believe like Manjaro is solid for gaming. Now let's talk about the negative. And those ones, they could be really a deal breaker for some of you guys. And I need to talk about them because I do believe this is really important. So the first thing is related to the packaging issue you're gonna encounter in this distro. And I did try this distro for 2 hours and a half, maybe 3 hours, and I wanted to test the content creation side of it. For example, is it easy to run OBS? Is it easy to install? Because I know like on some distro, you try to install OBS and it becomes like a mess. So I installed OBS. Installation was pretty nice. I installed it through Pamac. And then I tried to launch it and OBS couldn't launch. And I start to be like, did I do something wrong? Because my first reflex was to be, okay, maybe Air Max, you did something wrong. It happens, right? But I didn't do anything wrong. What happened after analyzing the overall problem, I found the issue. And the issue was related to a package which was installed during the install process. Okay, you hear me well. I did not install this extra package that break OBS. It was installed by the Manjaro installer. Okay, so it took me some time to understand because I thought at the beginning I did install like packages or dependency which were not compatible with my system. But guess what? It was not the case. What happened is like when they packaged the ISO of Manjaro, they added this specific package which will break if you own an NVIDIA card and want to run OBS. Simple as that. And this is an issue you're going to encounter for, I guess, a lot of other packages. The issue is based on the fact that because they take their packages initially from Arch, I guess, and then they modify it, sometime during this action of like forking everything and, reworking for the stable ISO, whatever they are doing, sometimes they made mistake, okay? And I'm not blaming them. I get it. Everybody makes mistake. But this is the type of issue you're gonna get. And this is what kind of like, break, for me, it's a big deal breaker, like the full like GUI experience. Because you go from having a nice, usually like beginner experience without having to touch the terminal to having to debug something that you didn't even do in the first place. You understand? So this is for me, it's a big no-go. I would say Manjaro, I don't know. Like, try not to break your packages. I know you have a lot of work on your hand, but this is on you guys. This is not on the user side. The good news is that some of my viewers know some member of the dev team of Manjaro, and he pushed this bug, and I do believe it's going to be fixed in the next ISO. So, at the end, it's going to be fixed. But I want you to be aware of this type of issue you might encounter here, and you might never encounter on Arch, for example. It's a Manjaro issue. The second negative here. This one is less important, but for a distro that want to give you the, nice user experience, everything is delivered out of the box, they forgot to load the NVIDIA module if you install the NVIDIA driver. I do believe, it's not a big issue, but it can be one if you are into, content creation. For example, if you want to use OBS VK capture via OBS, you need those modules loaded. Well, by default, they are not, which means like you're going to have to use the terminal. And it kind of breaks the full like experience via the GUI, right? Just another negative point. It's not that important, but still. The truth is like, I would have loved them to fix the first issue relating to the OBS packaging, but also like fix the fact it's two-line to add, like create a little script that add the correct like module while you start your machine. It's just two-line to add and regenerate the init ramfs. Like it takes like 2 seconds to create and to put within the distro. I don't understand why they don't do it. And now the third one, which is in my opinion the most important negative point toward Manjaro. I'm going to repeat myself here, but if you use PAMAC, you have the option to activate Flatpak, but also the option to activate the AUR. So the AUR is the community repository for Arch. This is one of the main reasons you want to use Arch, because there is a lot of script down there. We're going to make your life really easy when you come to install certain applications, certain software, certain driver. The issue I have with the AUR usage on Manjaro is that there is a big delay between the stable release of Manjaro and the Arch release in general. And if you happen to have one of your application from the AUR being upgrading between these windows of time, well, you're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get in a lot of trouble depending on the application you are using there. And this is the issue I believe I had when I tried Manjaro. So obviously in a 2-hour span, I couldn't reproduce that. But I will say using the AUR on Manjaro could be the source of a lot of issue. Obviously, certain packages, they will never get impacted by it, but some others, they might. So I won't go through all the dependency that could create a big problem there, but you get the idea. I know some of you guys might use the AUR and have never encountered any issue because it could work. But I would say overall, try to avoid it or make sure that the dependency they use will not be caught in this like big like type of delay of like update, because otherwise you're gonna be in trouble. All right, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. We are done with Manjaro. So Manjaro, how do I conclude this video? Man, it's such a tough one for me. I can't even give you a right, approach or feeling about the distro, because Manjaro for me is just full of ambiguity. It's user-friendly, but their packaging is not strong enough to deliver the full like user-friendly approach. You still have to open the terminal. At least I did in 2 hours of usage for just, launching my OBS, which kind of like is crazy to me. The second one, I would say, is related to the AUR. The AUR, you can activate it just by a click through PAMAC, which is great. But on the other hand, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble if you don't really understand what you are doing there. So I'm like, I don't know. It's too ambiguous for me. Ambiguous? Like, this is a word in English? It's just too complicated. If you are a total beginner, I would say go for Linux Mint, for example. If you are a full advanced Linux user, why are you not on Arch? Right? Or even like if you don't want to go through the Arch install, it's still easy, but you don't want to do that. Why are you not on EndeavorOS, for example? Why did you choose Manjaro? And honestly, I can't answer this question. I don't get it. And you're going to tell me like, yes, but AirMax, you tried it as your first distro or one of your first distro when you switched to Windows. And I think this is the key here. I think there is a big difference between their vision and what they actually deliver. I think this is the key. Like when I went to Manjaro website for the first time, like 2 years ago, in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to get Arch without problem. That's the way I kind of like imagine it. Imagine it, right? That's the way I felt it. I installed it, and guess what, dude? It was way more problems than Arch. So that's the ambiguity here. And I think hopefully in the future, they're going to be able to deliver a product that kind of like fulfills the promise of Manjaro. But for me today, it's too complicated. So I hate to be negative. I think there is some use case. You can have Manjaro, like a great experience. As I mentioned, like you just game, you don't want to use the AUR, you're just like going with the flow. No problem. You're going to be like a fish in the water, I would say, in this experience. But if you want to go further, don't use it. That's just my feeling overall. You know, like just do something else. That's just my 2 cents. Okay, and if you have any type of, you know, different like approach towards this distro, please let me know in the comment below. I will be really happy to read them. But yeah, that's all. That's all for me. We'll see where I put it in my overall like you know, top tier list for gaming. But I don't want to spoil this video. I'm gonna do it like in a few months after I test like over like distro. But yeah, it won't be in the top tier, that's for sure. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one, in one of my stream, the Wednesday or the Friday on this channel. And that's all. Have a great rest of your day, and as we say over there, bisous bisous.